Ina alhamdulillah wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulullah. We're continuing with the hadiths from Sahih Muslim, Volume 1. We're in the second part of it, which addresses Kitab al-Tahara, which is the book on purification, the book of purification. Today we're going to answer the questions that many people have about making wudu over your socks or your shoes and over your turban and the likes. First of all, guys, when we wipe over the socks, yes, you can wipe over your socks when making wudu. Okay? When you wipe over the sock, though, it's different. You're not going to take your foot and dip it in water. You're not even going to take water and put it in your hands and pour it over your sock. Instead, what you're going to do is wet your hand and then wipe it over the top of your sock, like this man has done in this picture here. You're just going to take a wet hand and wipe it over the top. You don't have to rub it. You don't have to do the heels, the toes. You don't have to do the back of it, the ankles. Just wipe it over the top of the sock. Why? And the same with the shoe. If you're going to make wudu over your shoe, you're going to take your hand, wet it with water, and just wipe the top of your shoe. You don't have to do the bottom part, the side, or any of that. The ankle, none of that. The reason being is because of the way Allah created the earth. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said dirt is a purification. Anytime we walk over dirt, it purifies what walks over it. So your feet, your shoes are cleansed of the dirt by you walking over it. So we don't have to clean the bottom of the shoe or wash the bottom of your sock or your foot. Okay? So just take your hands, wet it with water, and then lightly, and I repeat, lightly wipe over the top of your sock. The top being what you can see when you look down at your foot. Or the top of your shoe, the top being what you can see when you look down at your shoe. And by the way, guys, the socks do not have to be of leather. The socks do not have to be of a certain material or fabric. It doesn't matter what fabric your socks are made of. The same with your shoes. The only thing with the shoes is the shoe must cover your foot. It can't be a sandal. If you got on sandals, you can slip your feet out of the sandal and make wudu over your feet. We're talking about having real shoes on that cover your feet. Does everybody understand? If the shoe is a sandal, then you don't do wudu over the sandal. If it's a real shoe that covers your foot or a sock that covers your foot, then that's when you can wipe over the top of it. Is that clear to everyone? Let's look at that first hadith. One of the companions tell us that he saw another make wudu. And when he made wudu, he wiped over the socks. So he asked him, why are you doing that? He said, well, I saw the Prophet do this. The Prophet went to answer the call of nature one day. He made wudu and he wiped over his shoes. So again, that's the verification. That is the dalil that you can wipe over top of your sock or your shoe. And it doesn't have to be a certain fabric. It doesn't have to be leather or any of that. It could be whatever fabric. Look at this next hadith. One of the companions said, I was with the Prophet of Allah when he came to the dumping ground of filth that belonged to a particular tribe of Arabs. The Prophet urinated while standing. I want y'all to hear that. He urinated while standing. I want you to hear it again. He urinated while standing. And then the other person went inside, and the Prophet asked him to come to him, and he made wudu and wiped over his socks. So you learn two things from that hadith. There's a lot of Muslims out there that tell you that a man cannot stand up when he urinates. Yes, he can. If he's out in the open. If he's out in the open, if you're out in the woods or you're out in the desert, what are you going to sit down on? There's something to sit down on. You don't want to sit in no filth. You don't have to stoop. If you're out in the desert or you're out in the woods or something, a man can stand and urinate. And here's the evidence. The prophet stood at this dump and urinated. He wasn't going to sit. He wasn't going to squat. He stood. Why would he want to sit around filth? But now if you brothers are at home, in your houses, in your beautiful homes, in your bathrooms, there you need to sit on a toilet. Everybody understand that? When you brothers are at home, you sit on a toilet and use the answer to call of nature to be different from the non-Muslims. That's why. The prophet told the men to sit, to be different. But if you're out in the public, you're in the woods or the desert or something like that, or you were driving down the freeway, you have to answer the call of nature, you want to get out and stand and urinate, you can as a man. But remember, do not hold the private parts with your right hand. Hold your private part with your left when you're urinating. Look at this next hadith. One of the companions said, the prophet went to relieve himself, and I went with him carrying a jug of water for him to rinse himself with. The prophet poured water after urinating. The prophet poured water over himself. Then he made wudu and he wiped over the top of his socks. So again, these are all hadiths showing that you can wipe over the top of your shoes or the top of your sock. And look at this next hadith. One of the companions says that he was with the prophet on a journey, and the prophet asked him, do you have any water? He said yes. The prophet got off his camel and he disappeared into the darkness of the night to urinate. Then he came back and he made wudu. He washed his face and he brought his arms from out underneath his cloak and made wudu over his arms. This is important. There are some Muslim women and men out there who think that they can make wudu over their sleeves of their shirt, that they can wipe over the top of their shirt of their arms rather than take their arms from out of the jilbab or the thobe. No, the wiping is only over the shoe or the sock or the turban or hijab, not over your arms. And that hadith is important. The prophet brought his forearms from underneath it and made wudu. He washed his forearms and then he wiped over his head. And when this companion went to take off his socks, the prophet said, no, leave my socks on because my feet were clean when I put them on, and he only wiped over the top of them. Everybody understand? So you do not wipe over your sleeves. If you have to make wudu, you can wipe over your shoe or wipe over your sock or wipe over your hijab or turban. But you cannot wipe over the arms. You have to pull those arms out and or roll them sleeves up and wash the arms. Okay? And again, the evidence about the turban. And the turban is like the hijab. The Prophet ﷺ asked for some water. He washed his hands, his face. And when he tried to do his arms, he could not because the sleeve was tight. So he brought his arms from underneath the gown and threw the gown over his shoulders and washed his arms. Y'all see that? You cannot wipe over the arms. He then wet his hands and wiped over his forelock and his turban. He didn't take the turban off. He didn't take a handful of water and pour it over his head. He wet his hands with water and wiped over the turban. And then he wet his hands with water and lightly wiped over his socks. So this hadith shows that the wiping is only over the head, the turban or the hijab, and the top of your shoe or sock. Next hadith, the same thing. The Prophet used to wipe over his socks and over his turban, or over his socks, shoes, turban. That's it. And again, how do we wipe over the top of the shoe? You wet your hands with water and lightly wipe over it. Wet your hands with water and lightly wipe over your hijab. You don't have to go from the front to the back like you do your head. You just take it and just lightly wipe one time over the top of the hijab. over the top of the turban. Is that clear? But there's a condition. There's always conditions. You can wipe over your feet. You can wipe over your shoe. You can wipe over your hijab or turban. But there's a condition. The condition is you must have made wudu at least once before that, over that item or that area, that body part. You understand? So say for example, I woke up this morning for Fajr and I made a regular wudu over my feet. Now it's time for Dhuhr. I'm at work. I need to pray. Do I have to take my shoes off? No, I can just wipe over the top of my shoe because I did the whole foot when I made Fajr. And I can wipe over my hijab too, the top of my hijab, because I did my whole head when I made Fajr. So that's the condition. You have to have at least made wudu over that body part once before you do the wiping. Is that clear? And if you are a traveler, there's a time limit too. If you are a traveler, you can go up to 3 days. And up to 3 days with that wiping. If you're not a traveler, then 24 hours is your time limit. And those are the hadiths. Aisha was asked about this. She told the person to go ask Ali because he knows better the answer. And Ali told him that the Prophet said 3 days and 3 nights for a traveler, 1 day and 1 night for the resident, for a person who's not traveling. So that's the time limit. The condition is you have to have made wudu over that body part at least once before you do that wiping. And you can wipe over your foot, over your shoe or sock or hijab for up to 24 hours. If you're not traveling. If you are traveling, you can do it for up to 3 days. Okay, so remember that. That'll be on the quiz for tomorrow. And finally for today, another thing, again, everything is about cleanliness. Our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us that cleanliness brings you closer to Allah. When you wake up in the morning, just like you don't have to make wudu when you wake up, but we do to blow away the jinn from out of our nose so that we can go about our day without being, tired and groggy or whatnot. Well, also the Prophet said when you wake up, before you go in the kitchen and put your hands on some food, wash your hands. Because you don't know where your hands have been when you were sleeping. You could have had your hands in your behind or something. So wash your hands. Abu Hurairah said when any of you wake up from sleep, he should not put his hands in a utensil until he has washed it 3 times. Because you don't know where your hand was during the night. And again, some people say 3 times. Some people say it can just be 1. But it doesn't matter. You don't have to wash your hands 3 times. It could be 1 time or whatever. The bottom line is wash your hands when you wake up, before you go and touch some food. Before you go in that kitchen, open that refrigerator up to grab something out of there, wash your hands. It's just cleanliness. So what do we learn today? Well, you learn, number 1, that you can wipe over your socks or your shoes as long as you have made wudu over that body part before then. And it's good for up to 24 hours. Like right now, I got on shoes. When I go to make another wudu, I can just go and wipe over my shoes. I don't have to take them off because I'm at home. I can wipe over top of my shoe. And also wiping over the top is all that's required. Just the top of the shoe, the top of the sock, the top of the hijab. The top is all you need to do. And also you learn that, guess what? When you're out in the open, you're in the woods or off the freeway and you have to use the bathroom and you are a man, you can urinate while standing. You can urinate while standing. But now, if you're at home, it's best for you to sit, because the prophet said for men to try to be different than the kafir, sit when you are at home. But if you're out traveling, traveling is an inconvenience. You can stand and urinate if you're a man. Also, you learn that the wiping is only over the sock, the shoe, or the hijab. You cannot wipe over the sleeves of your shirt. You have to take your arms from out of there and wash your arms. And also, you learn that the time period is 24 hours if you are not traveling. If you are traveling, you can go 3 days with just wiping. And finally, you learn that whenever you wake up from sleeping, before you go in the kitchen and touch anything in there, you should wash your hands just to be clean. So we'll stop right here for today. Tomorrow I will give you a quiz over these hadiths. Then we'll move on to the next chapters of Kitab el-Tahara, addressing purification from Sahih Muslim. If you guys have any questions, type them on the screen. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka.